Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Spiritual Stuff and Fluff. And today I'm going to answer some of the questions. I've had quite a few questions sent to us, so I'm going to answer them. So I'm going to get them up on the screen so I can see them. So, question was, how did my journey start? Well, the interesting thing was I've always been aware of spirit. But that aside, I've always been aware that there's something more, something bigger than me. So when I was a child, I went to church, I did Bible studies, I went to Sunday school, I went to every church possible, probably. I was in Girl Guides, I was in Brownies, I was in Girls Brigade. I was part of many different church groups. And to be fair, those of a certain age, like myself, know that a lot of things were held in churches then. So we did spend a lot of time in churches, but I enjoyed the community side of things. One church in particular that I went to, there was friends, a lot of people I knew from then, I'm still in touch with now. And I always enjoyed, on an evening, I think it was a Friday night, we used to go to one of the church leaders' house, and him and his wife would put some food on, little snacks, and he played the guitar and would sing around. I'm not singing, and I'm not talking about it being all kumbaya, though that probably was one of the songs that we did sing. But we would sing, and it was just because singing does lift your soul right up. It really does, and so we would do that, and I really enjoyed it. I really, really did. Thoroughly enjoyed the community side of things. And I always knew that there was something more. And I didn't realize, that I was looking for that something. I would hear people talking about God. I would hear people talking about a higher power. I didn't understand what it was. And at 14, I even thought about, I even looked into um, becoming a Buddhist, joining, not a monastery, but joining a Buddhist group because I knew that there was something more, but I didn't know what it was. Little did I know that it was my spirit inside, always wanting more. Now, my grandma, my maternal grandma, she classed it, well, she was a witch. She was fondly called the witch, Mary the witch, in the family. And she seen herself as a white witch, a good witch. But she would talk to spirits, and when I used to go and stay at her house, she would sometimes go to church and she would come back and I would hear her talking about, someone's dad came through and he's been gone for 20 years and this one's sister came through and been gone for 10 years. And I think, how did that happen? No. And I used to find it fascinating. So when I was about 14, I remember being at school, and I was talking with a few of my friends, and I don't know whose idea it was, but we decided that we're going to go to Spooky Church. So we did. We went in, and I remember, you know, the church I went into was my local church, and I would sit and listen to the medium talking, and I didn't even understand what a medium was. And I would be watching the medium talk and I'd be looking on the floor. I wanted to see who was creeping around and whispering these things up to them because I didn't understand. It was all totally weird to me. But I'd also be sat there, and the medium would go to someone and say, I've got your dad here. And I'd be sitting there thinking, well, yeah, dad's dead. So what? You must have known that because I knew that. Little realizing that there was no way I could have known, but I was already linking in. I was already aware and I didn't understand. You know, I'd hear the mediums say, I'd hear names, and then I'd hear the mediums go to someone and say, I've got Tom, Dick, and Harry here. And I'd be sitting there thinking, well, I knew he was going to say that, or I knew that she was going to say that. And I didn't understand. You know, a lot of people say that they start going to spiritualist churches because they've lost someone. For me, it was different. I went to spiritualist churches out of curiosity because I'd heard my grandma talking about them. And I wanted to know. And after the first time I went, I wanted to know who it was that was telling these people that their dad or their mom or their sister or their brother or their grandma or whatever. I wanted to know who was telling them this. And I would go. And for a few weeks I'd go. And then, you know, life happens. I'd be out with me pals. And I wouldn't go back for a good few months. And then every now and again I'd keep going back. Because I'd been open to it. I wanted to know more. I would listen to the philosophies. I wouldn't get messages because I was only young. And it wasn't allowed in the churches. So I'd go along. And every time I'd go along, I'd be sitting, I would be watching the medium, but my eyes would be down on the floor to see if there was anyone behind the curtain, anything like that, whispering these things to them. I'd be looking to see, you know, did they have a headphone on or anything? And I'm going back quite a lot of years. How long am I going back? Oh, I'm going back 40 plus years. Seems a long time when I say it out loud. So that's what originally got me to go to church, because I was looking for something more. It wasn't because I had lost someone. At that time, I didn't know what it was to lose someone. I hadn't lost anyone. So that wasn't my reason to go to a spiritualist church. My reason was out of curiosity, plain and simple as that. Now, you know, life happens and we get busy. So I'd miss for a few months. Even at one point, I would say that I missed for a few. Yeah, it got to where I would maybe only go once a year, just out of curiosity. And it got to the stage where I would go if there was nothing else to do. And I'd find my mind thinking, I wonder if they still do that. And I would go. So I started going to church when I was 14, spiritualist church. Before that, I went to all different churches. I would probably say that I went to church from as far back as I can remember. I used to do Bible studies with my mum. My mum used to run in a local group that would do like scripture searches. And I enjoyed it all because I've always been a bit of a sponge. I love to learn. Now, forward, and I continue going to church. And I'll be honest with you, did it open us up to the possibility of something greater than us? Yes, it definitely did. I was open to that thinking anyway. But then when I started getting messages, I remember when I was pregnant with my son, I was told, I was pregnant with a little boy. And I had a feeling of that as well when I went with my daughter, when I was pregnant with my daughter. And when I was pregnant, I'll be honest, with both pregnancies, you couldn't tell I was pregnant because I wasn't big. I was still able to wear my normal clothes. Towards the end, I had to adapt it with a little hair bubble through the button on my jeans. But I was still able to, not hide it, but wear my normal clothes. So it really intrigued us. It really, really did, and at that same time, in the 80s, my mum was very much into Tony Robbins' personal growth. So I started listening to his cassettes that she had. I started listening to that. I started taking more notice of personal growth. And I started practicing it. Now, I practiced it. Did I practice it religiously? No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I would say that I'd just done it at surface level. But since then, over the years, I really take a deep dive in when I need to. When I need to. And it's usually when I feel stuck in my life. I go right within and I really have a good talk with myself. Sometimes it's about, sometimes I have to have a talk with myself about the past and look at it in different ways, reframe it to a way that's more acceptable for us to move forward. And I find that once I do that, blocks seem to move. Now, one of the questions I was asked was, how do I move blocks? Well, the advice I can give you is, when we have blocks that come up in our lives, sometimes we have to look at them, but sometimes we have to look at the backstory of the block. And we have to look at the backstory and we have to really, be courageous to open that up to ourselves. It's not about, saying to people, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at that, I'm looking at the other, I'm looking at myself from 10 years ago. It's not about, doing that. It's about just for you looking at behaviors, looking at actions, reactions, looking at all of that. But more importantly, looking at emotions. Because when we've had a block, it's usually an emotion or a sensation that starts first, and then we get the block. And a lot of us, we don't take notice of the sensations, we don't take notice of the emotions, because they always seem to have been there, but they're usually to do with something from the past. So we're reminded of that in our mind, it brings it up, it puts it into stuck mode. And sometimes we become overwhelmed because we'll get ourselves into a muddle. But that's where we should be giving ourselves grace. So one thing is the blocks that can be moved. So simple, so simple. So that was the start of my spiritual journey. Because I wanted to, I was curious. It wasn't because I had lost anyone. I was curious and I wanted to know who was telling these mediums, who was over in the spirit world, who was telling them descriptions, who was giving them characters, who was telling them everything like that. And at the time, I couldn't answer it. I couldn't answer it. I couldn't answer why I was getting names, and then the medium would come out with them. I didn't know nothing, but I didn't know, didn't have a clue. I didn't even question it. Didn't even question it. And I'll be honest with you, over the years, continued going to churches, spiritualist churches, and sometimes I will go into different churches, not just to listen to the philosophies, the talks, the sermons. Because when you listen to the sermons, when you listen to the philosophies, you'll always get a message, regardless of what the religion is, you'll always get a message. If you listen to the philosophies and the talks, I find them so interesting because it helps you to put a different outlook on something that you've been thinking about, or something, or a different way of looking at something that you've been looking at in yourself. So that's another question. So the blocks, how did I start my spiritual journey? Another question is, what are these spiritual awakenings? So a spiritual awakening, it usually can be different for everyone. Some people do wake up. You hear about people waking up and saying, I want my life to be better. Some people can wake up and say, I'm sick of how my life is. I'm sick of this, I'm sick of that, I'm sick of that. And then they really put the effort into changing things. And I'm not talking about changing wallpaper. I'm not changing colours of sitting rooms. I'm not talking about anything like that. I'm talking about self. Because sometimes we know that we deserve more. And that's usually the feeling that comes in when we wake up and we say, I want more in my life. It's usually because we know that we deserve more. It's usually our spirit talking to us and trying to push itself out to say, come on, pick your confidence up, get moving, look at your self-worth, come on, you deserve better. You know, people, there was one question that was sent to us, someone that's been in a bad relationship for a long time. And she asked, was there a way out? Spiritually, was there a way out? She didn't feel happy. She didn't feel anything like that. She felt as though she was just being ground down. So when you're in a relationship and you do feel as though you're being a bit ground down, and it can happen, I don't think there's many relationships that don't have up and downs. All relationships, and when we go into a relationship, we find a way to get that common ground where we can work things out, regardless of whether it's a husband and wife, a mother and daughter, a father and son, a mother and cousin, two sisters, a brother and sister. We all have times where we'll push a little bit and we get a push back. And when we get a push back, it's usually when we've got to look at with tact. Have we said something in a bit of a mean way? Has my intention been wrong? If we can change our intention, you'll find that it changes the energy, because everything's energy. It changes the intention. If you have a good intention, you'll find that things will work out. When this fallout, and there was a few years ago, there was someone I was talking to, and there was a bit of a fallout going on around him. And I said to him, I says, one thing when there's a fallout, I says, you've just got to get on with your life and let it come back together naturally. There'll be positives on both sides. Because at the end of the day, that saying, things fall apart to come back together better. And that's what happened. This person that had a fallout with someone, in the time that they'd had a fallout, they'd change the views, they'd change careers, they'd had a lot of shift in their life. And when they come back together with the other person had a lot of shifts in their life as well. We do have baggage. We do have emotional baggage. And sometimes when we have emotional baggage, think about it this way. If we have emotional baggage, it holds us down. Just like when we've got a suitcase, and if it's one of them that doesn't pull along with wheels and you've got to carry it, it's heavy. Emotional baggage is the same. And it does weigh us down. So when we feel less than, we make choices based on being less than. So sometimes things will happen that say, right, give you a little bit of a breathing space. Now, is that breathing space just to have some peace, some quiet, to get some clarity? Because clarity comes in many different ways. So when there's a fallout, yes, we spend many times, sometimes weeks, months, years, thinking, what if, if I only had said this, if I only had said that. But what's it doing? It's just keeping you in that stuck space. You haven't moved on, and the energy stays the same. So when we have a fallout, and I'm no angel, I've had fallouts where I've thought myself as well, I've spent weeks or months thinking, if only, and then you get yourself worked up. I wish I'd said this, and I wish I'd said that, and I wish I'd said the other. And we get myself all worked up. And what's happening is it's keeping myself stuck in that space. It keeps me in that energy, that stagnation. We end up stagnating. So, someone said to me years ago, when there's a fallout to anything, just wish them well, wish them on the way, send them love, get on with your life. And I never understood it. Never understood it. Because, as a person, as a human, we often put ourselves down, we often struggle with self-doubt. We often tell ourselves it's not going to happen. This isn't going to work out. It's not going to happen how I want it to be. And no, it doesn't always happen how you want it to be. Because wouldn't life be boring if we all knew the journey from A to B and B to C and what was going to happen in every single movement? It'd be so boring, don't you agree? I think it would anyway. So this is where we have to trust. We have to push out the self-doubt. We have to push out that feelings of less than. We have to push out those feelings of we deserve this. We have to move that we deserve this to we deserve better. We deserve to be treated better. We deserve to do better. We deserve to be who we are. You know, it's all about building myself up. Think about that emotional baggage, how heavy it is. And if you can lighten that load, you'll find that you carry yourself in a different way as well. You know, think about it. At times when you've been feeling a little bit depressed or a little bit down, or even when you've been out shopping or wherever, and you see people, you know, some people are hunched over, some people are, you know, you can tell the shoulders are down, you know, and you can see that in the way that they are, that you can see that they don't feel confident. But if you feel confident, you hold yourself in a total different way. Your shoulders go back naturally, your head goes up, and you smile a lot more as well. You really do smile a lot more because you find more things to smile about. So if we can rid ourselves of the emotional baggage, then the spirit's free. You know, we talk about spirituality. Spirituality, what is it? Spirituality is, you know, just that trying to be better than what we were the day before, wanting more out of our lives. You know, when I was a child and I knew there was something more, I'm not saying that I knew there was something more there for me. I'm saying I knew there was something more. And you think about spirituality, it's all about the energy. What we put out, it comes back. And I spent a lot of time, you know, trying to understand that. And it really is the energy we put out comes back to us. So when you are, you know, doing the dishes or when you are cooking the tea or when you're sitting watching a soap, whatever you're watching, and then you start having little thoughts that, you know, just pop in, old memories. Now, it could be that that's your spirit saying, take a look at that memory. Turn it round, look at it in a different way. Because that'll be your spirit saying, lighten the load. Lighten the load. And I guarantee you that if those memories come in, which they all do with everyone, if those memories come in, you just look at them in a slightly different way. Don't focus on them too much. Don't focus on the bad. It's almost as though you're refreshing yourself, but you're looking at them with fresh eyes. You turn it around, you're able to let it go. Let it go. And then you're releasing your emotional baggage. Your spirit is able to stand up and you're able to feel that spiritual person that you are. You know, people say, you know, these days, for a number of years, you hear people say, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. Well, we're all spiritual. It's got nothing to do with religion. We're all spiritual. You know, if you can help someone along, that's being a spiritual person. If you can brighten someone's day, that's being a spiritual person. If you can make a stranger smile, or if you can make someone's day a little bit easy just by smiling at them, that's being spiritual. It's allowing yourself to be led with your heart. Being kind to yourself, but being kind to others. And sometimes, you know, sometimes we'll really feel the heart open up. You know, a question also that I was asked, a question that was sent to us was, There's someone from your past that I just can't even think anything nice about. How can I be spiritual? Well, the advice I can give there is I just grab a mouthful of my coffee. The advice I can give there is, and I can understand this because that was me for a long time. There was people in my life who I still held bitterness towards, I still held resentment towards. And again, a lot of years ago, someone had told us, send them love. I can't do that. Cannot do that. No, I'd rather send them hate. But when I was studying me for my Reiki Masters, one of the things was that I was asked to do was visualize someone who I had real animosity towards. I'm not going to say hate, I'm going to say animosity towards. And I was asked to visualize them. I was asked to sit back, close my eyes, and visualize them. And I'll be honest with you, even just the picture of them in my mind, I could feel my heart close. And I was asked to keep the vision there, and I was asked to say nice things to them. Not about them, but nice things to them. And it was so hard, even though it was just a thought, it was so hard. That's how closed off I was. But I persevered, and I would sit every day. And at the end of my meditations, I would always bring that person's face to my mind, and I would send them thoughts, send you positive thoughts. I wish you a good life. I wish you good health. Until I was able to say, I wish you love. I send you love. And that's because every day when I did that, I could feel my heart opening a little bit more. Because, negative feelings, bitterness, resentment, all of those, any time that we feel as though we've been wronged, closes our heart a little bit. And what happens, it doesn't do us any favours. So you didn't try that exercise. No one's forcing you to, but you can try it. And you'll find it makes a difference to how you feel about yourself as well. It actually makes you feel good. It makes you feel better because you've shown that love to someone else, even though the person you may have, so many bad feelings towards, you may have so much resentment towards, but it serves as a benefit to you. It serves as a benefit to you. So give it a try. Give it a try, and it might work for you. Drop a comment. Let us know. Get in touch. And while I'm on, can I say, if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, can I ask you to subscribe? If you don't mind, subscribe to my channel. And then you'd be up to date with all of the videos that I have coming up, all of the videos and the lives and I have scheduled to come up as well. It would, and it's free for you to subscribe. Just, hit the button wherever the button is. Hit the button, there. Hit the button. Hit the button, to subscribe to my channel, because then you would be doing something nice for me. And it would also make yourself feel nice as well. And it's free. So I'm going to say thank you. If you have any more questions, I hope that some of the questions that's been answered. So I will be having more questions and answers sessions, in the podcast. But next week I have an amazing guest. I really do. In fact, the next few weeks there's a few amazing guests coming up. So many interesting stories. So I'll say thank you for listening, and remember, keep your spirit bright and your laughter loud. Bye for now.